Merry Christmas. It's now Christmas season, and we're getting right into it with this series on what was going on the day after for these people for whom we are very familiar with the Christmas story. People like Zacharias and Elizabeth, or Mary, Joseph, the shepherds, the angels, the Magi. So we'll be looking at not so much what happened on that day, but what happened the day after. For example, as we look at the Magi today, did they go back to their old way of living afterwards? Were they back to their astrology jobs when they got back to Persia, or just going to be doing horoscopes and writing next year's zodiac signs for people? I think that we wonder, what's a changed life going to be like for these people who got introduced to the baby Jesus? And so we're going to start out in Matthew chapter 2 with the Magi. And it's verse 1 we read, "After Jesus was born in Jerusalem in Judea, during the time of King Herod, Magi came from the east. They came to Jerusalem and asked, 'Where is the one who has been born King of the Jews? For we saw his star in the east, and we've come to worship him.' Back home in Persia, we saw the star that told us of his birth, a birth of a king of the Jews." And so this happened prior to the year we think of as year 1, because we know that Herod dies after this story ends here in chapter 2. And it's a matter of history that Herod died in the year 4 BC, so Jesus had to have been born several years before that, so at least a couple. So we know the timing's off a little bit on that, but these Magi who go to Jerusalem. They know the King of the Jews has been born, but they do not know where he's been born, and so they just go to the capital city and say, "Okay, Jews, where is he? You ought to know. If we know, certainly you know. Where is he who has been born King of the Jews? We want to worship him." The word for worship here is proskuneo. It means to kiss, not a passionate kiss as you with your lover. This is a kiss like a dog licking a master's hand. This is to fawn or to crouch, to prostrate yourself in an act of worship, that kind of a kiss the ring kind of thing. And so that's what they want to do. They want to come and acknowledge the birth of this king who gets the headlines from the sky on his birth. They've never seen anything like this. Now, keep in mind that the countries around this time all had many religions. Egypt had all kinds of gods. Arabia had all kinds of places to worship different gods to do. Same with Persia and Rome and Greece. You just go to Mount Olympus, take your pick. You can worship one, you can worship several. And nobody seemed to care that much. Caesar wanted to make sure that Romans would include him as one of their gods, but all in all, it was just a potpourri. It's a buffet. Take the god of your choice. And among these people, there were these Magi who, in their country, lived by being the ones who would study the stars. They were astronomers, so they studied the movement of the stars and planets, so they could use them in directing people to think this way or do that. And so some, I'm sure, had real belief that the stars were doing this, but what's the power behind the stars? And other times I think they're just assigning things. Okay, we got one zone for the Romans and one for the Jews and one for Babylonians, and they just go around and they pick 12. And so they got their 12 zodiac signs, and they just do their assigning and somehow expect this to work for forecasting somebody's future. And that's kind of what they used to do. But that changed for these Magi, because after centuries of such behavior by these Magi, now something happens where, wait a minute, that was not planned. That thing up in the sky wasn't supposed to be there. We got to do something about this. Back a long time ago, when I was in 8th grade in the band, I was a percussionist. Now, I didn't read music, so they never let me play the timpani or the bells, and I could occasionally play the triangle or sometimes the cymbals, and oftentimes it was the bass drum. I bring this up because I had a remembrance when I went to a concert just recently near here, And I was thinking of the bass drummer. The percussion section at that concert did a great job, and I could hear that bass drum beating. It reminded me of the last concert I had in 8th grade, where we had been practicing a song, one of the songs for the concert, and when we got close to the concert, we were not doing that song well, and the director said, okay, what we're going to have to do is slow it down, because at this speed, you guys can't do this. So we were all supposed to go slower. We practiced that way a couple of times, and then for the concert, I'm playing bass drum. And when the director starts this song, he starts directing slowly as he was thinking we could do it. It would not sound as well, but we might perform it better. Meanwhile, I totally forgot that, and I'm playing the speed that we were originally planning for it. So I'm beating fast, and he's directing slow. And I could see him looking at me, trying to tell me something. I couldn't figure out what he wanted me to do. So I'm just banging away at the faster speed. Now, that would be very awkward if I'm at a different tempo than everybody else. But all the band followed me and not the director. And so at first he's upset that he's trying to direct, swinging his arms, but nobody's paying attention to him, instead me. We did the song well. But as I was reflecting back on it here decades later, I'm thinking about the fact that I led everybody in the band astray. They paid attention to me and not to the director. And so here I think the Magi similarly were thinking, oh my goodness, we've been telling people what the stars mean and what this or that says. We've been misleading people all our lives by telling them one thing when there is a director in heaven who knows what it's supposed to be like, and we weren't paying any attention to him. And so they decide they want to come. They realize the truth. There is a power in the heavens. They want to know that power, and so they have come to worship him. Now, we go back to Matthew chapter 2, and it says in verse 3, when King Herod heard this, he was disturbed, and all Jerusalem with him. Now, that would be for different reasons. Here you got this big caravan coming from the east with servants and camels and horses and wagons and all kinds of people. Not just 3 old guys on camels with big presents. No, that would have been an entourage here. And they show up in the middle of town thinking, okay, where is he? And they're just making a loud noise saying, point him out, we want to find him. And people are disturbed, all Jerusalem, with King Herod. All Jerusalem because they're thinking, what? Our king is born? We don't know. Messiah is here? Nobody told us? What is this? They don't know. King Herod's disturbed because he hates competition. He doesn't want a new king to be born if it's not his son. As a matter of fact, he's even executed some of his sons who he thought wanted his job a little too early. So his response was, when he called together all the people's chief priests and teachers of the law, he asked them where the Christ was to be born. Now, I don't know if they had a ready answer. I think they probably argued about it for hours, but they came to the conclusion, as it mentions in verse 5, in Bethlehem of Judea, they replied, for this is what the prophet has written. But you, O Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for from out of you will come a ruler who will be the shepherd of my people Israel. Now, I have to pause a moment and just ask, why, once they hear King Herod asking them, where's he supposed to be born, why, after the whole city has heard the Magi and their entourage saying, where is he, where is he, why didn't these people get curious enough, these teachers of the law and these priests? If they're thinking it's possible that Messiah came, why weren't they on their way to Bethlehem as well? If not that very day, why not the next day? Weren't they at all curious about this themselves? Let's continue in Matthew chapter 2, verse 7 says, then Herod called the Magi secretly and found out from them the exact time the star appeared. The exact time it had appeared. And so he wants to know, how old is this child? They say they saw a star when a baby was born. Later on, we're going to find out that Herod say we've got to execute all the kids 2 and under. That makes me thinking that he's been told it was 1 year. Well, just for safety's sake, we'll make it 2. And so he's going to execute 2-year-old boys in the Bethlehem area. But right now he wants to know the exact time. And notice he calls them secretly. This wasn't a public thing. Invite the whole town to hear the great good news together of how old the child is. This could be a 10-year-old boy. They don't know yet. So he's got to find out. So he has them tell him secretly. And then he sends them to Bethlehem. He didn't send his army first because the Magi already have an army. And they just know too much. And so he says, oh, go make a careful search for the child, and as soon as you find him, report to me so that I may go and worship him. I want to do what you guys want to do. You go do your proskuneo, and then you come back, tell me what the street address is, and then I'll go to Bethlehem, and I'll do the same thing. You just let me know. Verse 9, after they had heard the king, they went on their way. And the star they had seen in the east went ahead of them until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were overjoyed. I'm reading New International Version. They were overjoyed. Now, the exciting thing is they come all this way from east, going west, across the Fertile Crescent to get to Jerusalem. Now they're instructed, you're only 5 miles from your destination, 5 miles south. And so they're supposed to take the road south, a very simple thing to do. And we then find out that on their way, they now see a star. It's supposedly still daylight, but this star is bright in the sky in the day, as we know that planets and stars can occasionally be. This star is there ahead of them, so that as they continue south. This star can't be there. By any reckoning they have, this star cannot be there. And so the same miracle of the star they saw a year before in the skies above Babylon, now the star is here in the sky above Bethlehem, and it seems to be moving. And so they follow it. They just follow the star. They'd seen it, and it went ahead of them and stopped over the place where the child was. So they're going to follow that star because they don't know what else to do to find the exact spot. And it says they were overjoyed. Actually, that's a simple English word saying very happy, right? Oh, more than normal joy. But that's actually 3 Greek words involved in that phrase there, sphodra, megas, and kara. And so we have here sphoda meaning to the extreme here. We've got it. It's the exceeding. And then megas, as we use mega, meaning a million or a very large. So we got exceedingly very large, and kara means joy. So this is way beyond the normal kind of joy. It's the ultimate kind of excitement. Now, those men who were with the Magi, the surgeons, the mercenaries and the servants, they're not studiers. They don't know what it is. They see some light in the sky, sure, but they don't understand perhaps why these Magi are so excited about it. These guys are ready to do handsprings. These young men, old men, whatever they were, we don't know how many except more than one, and they're ready to just do anything, and so they're jumping up and down, quite out of character with these majestic Magi. And so they are overjoyed because of this miracle here. Verse 11, on coming to the house, they saw the child with his mother Mary, and they bowed down and worshipped him. And they opened their treasures and presented him with gifts of gold and incense and myrrh. So we're getting this record here and realize that Joseph was not home. They're not still by a manger somewhere where they were a year before. It mentions here they come to a house, and they saw a child with his mother. Now, the word padion means a small child. And that's what's used in Luke describing Jesus at the birth. That's what's mentioned here in Matthew. In Luke, it's brephos. It's this newborn. And so it's a different word because the child has aged. He's more of a toddler now. Time has changed. And the star leads them exactly to the house, and they're heading straight for the star, and all of a sudden, the star's gone. It either stopped moving. It says it stopped over the place. Did it stop moving, or did it just stop shining? For one reason or another, it stopped, and they know this must be the address. They go in, and sure enough, there's this woman with her child, and she's a little shocked. They know, these men know from far away, they know who the baby is. And she's not talking to everybody about such a thing. but they want to go. And so they open their gifts of gold and frankincense and myrrh, and they present these to him. You can imagine what happens when Joseph gets home after he's told by somebody, hey, you got visitors today. You ought to go back to home, right? Skip cutting down that tree here and go check it out. And he finds this whole group camping in his yard, and they have presented these fantastic gifts to Mary and Jesus, and he sees them in adoration of the Son. And they're just on their faces wanting to kiss his feet. It's just amazing. So it's a fantastic day, but what about the day after? Verse 12, and having been warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, they returned to their country by another route. They're heading home. But instead of following the normal path, which would be north to Jerusalem and follow the Fertile Crescent path, the King's Highway, they decide we're going a different way. We are not going back to Herod. We are not going to give him the address for this child because they've been warned in the dream. This will be one more new thing for them. We've got not only the star we saw back in Babylon, the star we saw in Jerusalem, now we've got this warning in a dream. Notice it doesn't tell us about exactly what to read here. Having been warned in a dream. Was it one person who wakes everybody else up? Hey guys, I've been warned in a dream. We got to go now. And the rest say, okay. And they leave in the middle of the night. That's a possibility if they're ready for something special happening here. But the other part is, after being warned in a dream not to go back, they returned. Is it possible they all had the same dream? They all heard God telling them, get up and go now and go a different way. And so they returned to their country by another route. What happened as they returned? It's going to take them a while. It's going to take them at least a month to go back home by this other route. What did they talk about on the way? What was the trip home like? You can imagine the discussion. Hey, Fred, are you going to be writing zodiacs next month? Hey, Philip, are you going to be studying stars anymore? Well, if we get messages like that, I want to study stars maybe. But to me, I'm thinking they have realized that all these other gods of the world were phonies. The ones that people invent, the ones that devil suggested, whatever. This was all a bunch of garbage. And so you just wonder, can they go back to being Zoroastrians after that? That's what they were, basically star-worshipping people, followers of Zoroaster, thinking there's a good God and there's a bad God, and you should choose the good and try to do the good all your life. They're realizing, no, there is one true God, and now it's obvious that he wants us to have a relationship with him. He's got a message right there in flesh and blood. There is a one true God. He wants a relationship with me, then I want to have one with him. They should be realizing that it's not just a religion, that they're now choosing to reject what they had and choose this new. They're not just turning to a new religion. They're turning to a relationship with a God that they had never known before. That is what you need to have. That is what you should never forget. Don't settle for just religious habits of going to church, maybe only occasionally, whatever, ho-hum worship. No, you want to develop and nurture a true, vital relationship with the God who went so far to know you. God bless you in that endeavor. Amen. Merry Christmas.